Empedocles was a pre-Socratic Greek thinker born in the city of Acragas in Sicily around 494 BC. He was most famed for the classical theory of the four elements: water, air, fire, and earth, and also for his apparent suicide by the volcano of Mount Etna, in the belief that he would either return or be immortalized as a god, most likely in the afterlife. He was a sort of prophet, magician, mystic, or wonder worker who believed in reincarnation, a la Pythagoras, and thought that he was suffering a punishment by being incarnated in the material world. Diogenes Laertius testifies to there being two major works by Empedocles. One, a poem titled On Nature, with the same title as the famous poem of Parmenides. The other, On Purifications, a poem about ritual purifications and sacrifice. Empedocles built upon Parmenides' theory of the One, that what is and cannot not be, and what is not is impossible and cannot possibly be, introducing the four classical elements and two further forces, love and strife, that explain all the movement within what is. All the forces of flux, generation, and destruction are explained by this metaphysical scheme. Nothing truly ever comes into and out of being, but everything is constantly changing form due to the action of these forces. The air, fire, water, and earth Empedocles refers to are metaphysical terms, and he referred to them using the names of gods from the Hellenic pantheon to make this point clearer. He used Persephone to represent water, Zeus for ether, Hera for earth, and Aidoneus, an alternate name for Hades, for fire. In this scheme, love is what mixes things together, and strife or discord is what separates. Eros versus Eris, if you will, love versus chaos. Empedocles thought the universe was subjected to an endless cycle of breathing, similar to doctrines of the Hindu yugas or Hesiod's ages, in which it cycles between extreme love and extreme strife. When the rule of love is dominant, everything is unified into a mass with none of the four elements distinct, in a sort of mystical cosmic union lacking polarity of the totality of existence. Strife then gradually separates the elements over time, and the process accelerates until total strife is experienced in the span of an instant. Then love gradually returns and time stops accelerating and begins to slow down. From On Nature. A double tale shall I tell, for at one time they grew to be one, alone, instead of many, and then again they divided into many instead of one. The birth of mortal things is twofold, and twofold their departure. When the roots all meet, the one is born and destroyed, and when they divide again, the other is nourished and dispersed. The roots never cease from continuous alternation. Now are they brought together by love, until all are one. Now all are born asunder by the hostility of strife, until they grow together as one, and the totality is overcome. Thus, in that they have learnt to become one from many, and turn into many again when the one is divided, in this sense they come to be and have an impermanent life. But in that they never cease from continuous alternation. They are forever unchanging in a cycle. This sounds almost like an omega point, as described by Teilhard de Chardin. A singularity, if you will, a teleological object at the end of time that is drawing all of existence toward itself until the point of maximum strife and separation is reached, and the cycle begins over again. Empedocles speaks gloomily of our birth during a time of strife. Quote, "Alas, poor wretched race of mortal creatures, what discord and grief have given you birth." He also speaks on what is and what is not, and the imperishable nature of what is. Here you're able to see his belief in reincarnation, likely heavily influenced by Pythagoras and the Orphic doctrines. Quote, "For there is no way for what is not to be born, and for what is to perish is impossible and inconceivable, since wherever it is planted at any time, there it will always be, nor in the totality is there anything empty or overfull. Listen now to a further point. No mortal thing has a beginning, nor does it end in death and obliteration. There is only a mixing and then a separating of what was mixed, but by mortal men these processes are named beginnings. There are a few fragments from On Nature that seem to describe the nature of the One in Empedocles' interpretation. Quote, "And so it is kept fast by the firm lid of harmony, a rounded sphere, delighting in its blessed stability. For from its back no two branches spring and rush. It has no feet, no nimble knees, no genitals for procreation, but is equal to itself from every direction and entirely boundless, a rounded sphere, delighting in its encircling solitude. For its body is not equipped with a humanoid head, from its back no two branches spring and shoot, neither do feet, nor nimble knees, nor hairy genitals, but it is only mind, sacred and inexpressibly vast, rushing through the whole world with swift thoughts." He also speaks of the sort of origin of the human race and the original golden age, in which everyone was united by love. They worshipped Lady Eros, or Aphrodite, or Cyprus, as Empedocles calls her. Quote, "But now hear the account that follows of how the shoots of the wretched human race, men and women, were raised at night, by fire as it separated. The tale is true and informative. First there arose from the earth whole natured shapes, with a portion of both water and heat, their arising forced by the urge of fire to reach its kin. Nor yet did they display bodies fair with limbs, nor voices, nor again the human characteristic of speech. They did not worship Ares or the battle's rage. Their gods were not Zeus and Kronos and Poseidon, but the lady Cypris. They sought her blessing with pious statues, with animal paintings and infinitely varied fragrances, with offerings of pure myrrh and scented frankincense, and by pouring onto the ground libations of yellow honey. No altar was bathed with the unspeakable slaughter of bulls. In fact, there was no greater abomination among men than to deprive a creature of life and to eat brave limbs. Every creature and every bird was tame and amenable to men, and everywhere kindness blazed forth. Alas, poor wretched race of mortal creatures, what discord and grief have given you birth!" Empedocles was also a vegetarian, and for more of a spiritual reason than one might think. In fact, he seemed to believe that human souls could incarnate in the bodies of animals, and he has multiple lines to this effect. Quote, "For in the past I have already been a boy and a girl, a shrub and a bird, and the fish that leaps from the sea as it travels. Will you not end the terrible sounds of your murder? Do you not see that in your thoughtlessness you are eating one another? A father raises up his own son in a different form and slaughters him, with a prayer, the utter fool, while the son sheds bitter tears and begs for mercy from the sacrificer. Deaf to his reproaches, the father slaughters the victim in his home and prepares a vile meal, and likewise a son takes his father, children their mother, deprive them of life, and consume their flesh." Empedocles also seemed to think that the heart was the seat of fire and understanding, intuition and perception within the human being. Quote, "The heart, nourished in the ebb and flow of seas of blood, is the main seat of what men call understanding, for understanding is the blood around the heart." Empedocles speaks on reincarnation, about his identification with his daimon, and his exile from the gods into the human world. Quote, "It is an oracle of necessity, an ancient decree of the gods, that when one goes astray and pollutes his body with murder, one of the spirits to whom long life has been allotted, for 30,000 seasons he wanders far from the blessed ones." In time, he assumes all the various forms of mortal things, and exchanges one hard path of life for another. For the power of ether pursues him into the sea, and the sea spits him onto dry land, and the earth into the beams of the blazing sun, and the sun casts him into the whirling ether. Each in turn receives him, but to all he is loathsome. Now, I too am one of these, an exile from the gods, a wanderer, putting my trust in the insanities of strife. So Empedocles seemed to see himself as a sort of exiled god who was destined to pay off some sort of karmic debt or something like that by living in the human realm. There are a few testimonies as to how he died. As reported by Diogenes Laertius, Empedocles jumped into Mount Etna, believing it would prove he was a god, either by coming back alive or becoming an immortal after death. Another version comes from Heraclides of Pontus. He says Empedocles was at a feast, stayed up all night, and disappeared by morning. Some heard a voice calling his name from the sky, suggesting he didn't die in a fire, but was taken up into the air. All in all, Empedocles was one of the most influential pre-Socratic thinkers, whose original theories of reincarnation, challenging of animal sacrifice, and vegetarian diet make him a remarkably influential figure in the history of philosophy.